What's your favorite scary movie?
Be like, I'm dying.
If some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, they guys," I'm like, "It's over and done. We're married now."
For someone in the movie, so I'm like, kiss. But
oh God, what a sea of humanity.
Hey, welcome into 52/1994, the live movie conversation podcast where we discuss movies from the year 1994. I am your host, Cody, and I'm joined by my co-host this week, Ryan. Welcome back, Ryan. We're so glad to have you here.
Hey guys, have a tood wiener, dude.
What? I forgot that's the
David Spade's in this movie.
The David Spade is in this movie. I completely forgot until just now.
Yeah.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. We are so happy for you to join us today. Just to give you a little bit of heads up about what we do here. So all we're doing is we watch 52 movies from the year 1994, important movies that I decided were important, released this year by monthly categories. Doesn't matter if they're good movies, bad movies. And then I have a guest host on to talk about them and see what they've been watching lately. And this week, like I said, we've got Ryan, who chose this movie from a list. And because of that, I want to ask him and ask you, Ryan, if you had ever seen this movie before. And
yeah, so I think I'd seen it once because it was just a cultural touchstone as a movie nerd in college. I had heard about a very 90s movie, and I watched it once, and I had fond memories of it. And rewatching it, I was surprised with how many things were familiar to me and comfortable to me, and surprised that 15 years later, that I kind of had the same exact opinions I had way back when. So
yeah. I'm interested to learn those opinions. I had seen this movie before, but probably way further back than like, I don't know when you watched it, but I'm assuming, like you said, within the last like 15 years. I think I watched it back when my sister was right around this age. So my oldest sister, she graduated high school in 96. So it was kind of her time then.
That is a different thing. Watching stuff like this when you discover it, maybe as a movie nerd in high school, or you're just watching it because it's on TV, or you have an older sister, versus me a few years later, just trying to like pirate movies and fill in my my cultural gaps and being like, oh, I gotta finally see Reality Bites.
Yeah, so I knew like parts of this movie. I knew what to kind of expect because I had also heard, I've read some articles about it and things about it that kind of made me remember as I was watching it. But some of the lines, some of the cameos that we see, I was just not expecting. So it was a fun watch. I had a really good time watching it. Hopefully you did too.
Yeah, of all the things you can make fun of on this movie and things that could tear apart, man, it's fun from beginning to end. It moves along at a clip. I like every little scene. It's edited very snappy.
Yeah.
Makes me never like too bored or too angry at anything. So yeah, for analyzing it, it's a silly mess. But yeah, I watched it twice for this podcast, and I enjoyed the second viewing all the way through because it just moves fast.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch it. I ended up buying it. It was $1. It was $1 more to buy this movie than it was to rent it. So I was like, yeah, I'll just own Reality Bites. What's wrong with that? And I do think that I'll go back and watch it. If not just to get my opinions of it just kind of revamped, so I can just get mad all over again. I'm not mad at this movie. I just
there are things to be mad about in this movie.
I'm kind of mad at this movie.
Yeah.
but anyway, let's talk. Let me talk about it a little bit, give all these little details and stuff. Of course, we're talking about the movie Reality Bites. It was actually released 30 years ago to the day. So kind of crazy that we hit that perfectly. So February 18th, 1994, it came out. It was done by this little-known director. His name's Ben Stiller, and it was written by Helen Childress. I think this might have been Ben Stiller's like first movie director role.
It makes sense. He was coming off the Ben Stiller show, right? Like,
yeah, a lot of his like friends are in this.
So. He's doing nothing on SNL, so he left and did his own thing, Ben Stiller show, which has kind of been forgotten about, and not all of it holds up great, but was one of those early 90s comedy sketch shows that like really brought like grunge comedy and the beginnings of old comedy in there. Great cast on Ben Stiller show, but he's coming off of that to direct his first feature length, I think.
And wasn't Janine Garofalo on the Ben Stiller show?
And so was Andy Dick, and so was Bob Odenkirk.
That's right. So a lot of those guys who then go on to make their own sketch comedy shows or go on to be comic actors as well. So this cast that we are already kind of talking about here, Winona Ryder is Lelena Pierce, Ethan Hawke as Troy Dyer, Ben Stiller as Michael Grates, Janine Garofalo as Vicky Minor, Steve Zahn in here as Sammy. Love Steve Zahn.
Love Steve Zahn.
Then I didn't list out all the names of these people, but I did want to, give a mention that all these people are in this movie. So Swoosie Kurtz, Andy Dick is in this. Keith David, just randomly, who I have dubbed so far the Queen of 1994, Karen Duffy. Who was an MTV VJ at the time. She is one of the gangsters from Dumb and Dumber. She's the banker / undercover agent from Blank Check that gives the 10-year-old boy a kiss on the mouth at the end of that movie.
Of course.
She is in this movie at the very end on the Michael's like reimagining of the Troy Lelena story. She's just barely in this movie. Joe Don Baker's in this movie. John Mahoney, a lot of people probably recognize him as Frasier's dad. Of course, he's been in a lot more than just Frasier. David Spade's in this. Jean Triplehorn's in this movie. Renee.
I did not recognize her. I had to read that.
I didn't either. I did not recognize Jean Triplehorn. We did The Firm last year, and I was like, love her. She's amazing. Did not recognize her in that role at all. So I think they were dating at the time.
Yeah, she was dating somebody. I forget who. Ben Stiller, I guess. Yeah.
I think she was dating Ben Stiller at the time, and he was like, "Come on, be this VJ. I need you to in your face VJ."
Was Basic Instinct last year? 93.
I think Basic Instinct is 92. So
she'd already had a huge role in movies.
Yeah,
and I guess because she's dating him, she's like, "All right, I'll do this one little segment, this sketch." Yeah.
And somehow she looked like Jean Triplehorn is one of those people that looks 30, like she never escaped looking 30 to 38 years old, but she looked like she was 21 in this movie, and in that small role she was in here.
When Wikipedia mentioned her little cameo, they said that she played a Cindy Crawford-esque character.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, that's so early 90s to reference Cindy Crawford. And I was like, I guess you would. I wouldn't think of like, oh, look at her on an MTV type show. It's Cindy Crawford, but
why I'm drinking Pepsi. It's the voice of a generation.
Exactly.
Let me give the synopsis that Google gave me. I have not read this. I just copy and paste, as always. After college, Lelena films a documentary about herself and friends as they flounder in their attempts to forge relationships and begin careers. Vicky works retail, has an endless string of one-night stands, and awaits the results of her HIV test. Sammy tries to come out to his parents. Lelena gets involved with yuppie Michael while maintaining a love-hate relationship with Troy, emphasis on hate there, who's undergoing an existential crisis. I don't know if Troy is undergoing an existential crisis.
About Troy. I'm sure we'll agree about Troy.
The budget of this movie was $11.5 million, and the box office was pretty good at $41 million. So not too shabby. Rotten Tomatoes has this movie at a 63%, IMDb as a 6.6 out of 10, and Letterboxd with a 3.4. I'm going to read a lengthy Roger Ebert review, not the full review, obviously, but I wanted to read this. He gave it 2 out of 4 stars. He said, "What interested me about the film, which was directed by Stiller and written by Helen Childress, is how blind it is to its own realities. We are expected to accept Lelena, I guess, as a committed cinema verite documentarian in the tradition of Frederick Wiseman, Michael as a crass corporate monster, and Troy as a rebel who sees through phoniness. This is all wrong. On the basis of the footage that we are allowed to see, Lelena is not a filmmaker, but simply someone who plays with a video camera, nor are the friends she photographs especially interesting. What Michael's people in New York do to the footage is an improvement, and Troy is a self-centered prick who is not half as clever as he thinks he is."
Wow. I agree with most of that, but the idea that the in your face is an improvement.
Although I will kind of agree. I turned to Alyssa when we were watching. I go, except for the pizza thing, everything else was
And
better.
the Psycho thing, I hated that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I forgot about that.
The opening credits, amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just like, oh, it's the real world. That's what
That's
they're
what it
copying.
is, yeah.
They're just doing the real world.
Yeah, real quick, I was going to go back and mention. I'm glad chat did. As far as like star-studded cast, this was produced by Danny DeVito.
Yeah, which is
that showed up on screen. I was like, how did that happen? I didn't get any new details about it, but Danny DeVito's behind the scenes, making sure this artistic vision gets to us.
We do have a positive review here. By aiming specifically and accurately at characters in their 20s, debuting screenwriter Helen Childress and first-time director Stiller, known for his erstwhile Fox comedy show, achieved something even greater. They encapsulate an era. Desson Thomas of the Washington Post. So,
yeah,
there are people out there that liked it.
I'm surprised the reviews are as low as they are in like the 6s. Obviously, maybe nostalgia bumps that up a point or two for a lot of people who actually know the movie and would.
Yeah.
And
those reviews, I always grab them from 94.
Mm-hmm.
So again, at the time, I don't know what anybody's reviewing it nowadays, who would actually give a shit about it, I guess, but
we do.
We do. Yeah. I would love to ask my sister and be like, what are your thoughts on this movie as a quintessential Gen Xer? What do you think about this movie? And she'd probably love it.
I asked a couple Gen Xer friends, jumping ahead a little bit. They both remembered the thing they both mentioned first and remembered the most was the very brief My Sharona dancing scene. And that was the thing that stuck in my head too. So that was like a memorable little moment that felt like capturing youthful fun and energy that stuck with people.
I think that is probably the only scene I remembered from when I was a kid and watched this movie way too young.
Yeah, and that's this movie at its best is when it's really kind of capturing that energy and it feels legitimate and fun.
I love the I love the dialogue in this movie. The back and forth exchanges is so good. Just of a time. A little bit of a legacy things to just talk about here real quick is that this movie in 2005, the real Troy Dyer sued the writer, producer, and director for claiming that she wrote this about him, and then I think they settled out of court or something. Oh, the suit was quickly settled after Dyer received a written document from Childress stating that he was not the person portrayed in the film.
Which also makes me think he's definitely the real Troy Dyer because he doesn't want money. He just wants to force this woman. Like he just won a fight, like an internal fight with an old like ex or whatever. It's like, I got her to send me in writing that this isn't about me. I win. I don't care anymore.
I hope he has it framed.
Yeah, he probably does.
No, he put it in a box somewhere because F the man. And then in May 2022, it was reported that they were going to have a television series adaptation of the film. That was in the works at Peacock, with everybody like serving as executive producers for it, like DeVito and Childress and Stiller, all those people all involved. So I don't know how they would do it. I guess if they're doing it with maybe like Gen Z.
Yeah. Just make a new show. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want a 90s.
Mm-hmm. And they've done that a lot. Like I didn't watch the High Fidelity show, but I mean that
it wasn't bad. I watched a few episodes of it, but and it wasn't bad at all. But I don't know if you did this, and maybe it's just me being more, I don't know, online and TikTok-y or whatever it is, but like I saw myself comparing Gen X and like Gen Z and the whole time I was great.
I mean, I had a lot of notes. Like one of the biggest things like influencing this is I should say that I judge Gen X based on their media and what's been said about them after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found Gen X wanting, and it's like grunge era. And that's a lot of this movie is reminding me. I was like, these kids aren't cool. They're not smart. They're not passionate. They're not interested in making the world a better place. And they're not even that clever about it. They're just kind of like, they're just kind of like sticking their tongue out at mom and dad. And I want to be on their side, but they just annoy the fuck out of me.
I tell Alyssa all the time that Gen X is I wish I were Gen X. Because I feel like you can kind of give a shit, but you don't have to do anything about it.
Yep.
You just sit back and watch the world burn.
Yeah,
You're just like,
exactly.
I love this.
Whatever, man. Real quick, I should have looked up the name of this. I watched it on some random place, but I think Robert Downey Jr. in the early '90s, maybe it was '94 because I think it was a presidential election. Made a documentary. It was like between SNL and him falling apart or something. Maybe it was well, it would be '88 and '92, probably '92. He made a documentary where he's just like in baggy jeans and he's like, "What's going on with the world, guys?" And he travels the country and he talks to other kids about like global politics and stuff. And he just asks people on the street. But then mostly he just gets like ADD when people are trying to say what they feel about the world. And he's like, "I'm gonna walk in a fountain in a corporate square." And he's like, "What's the deal with all these missiles, man? I don't know." Like it's Gen X, annoying Gen X in a nutshell, is watching Robert Downey Jr. as this like punk kid think he's so cool and so like brave and wise, and he's just an annoying brat the whole time. And I always think about that movie when I think about that maybe unfair feelings I have toward like grunge kids in that specific era.
I think of the characters from the movie or from the musical Rent. I think of just they're so artsy. Everything is a project that they're working on. I'm writing my next novel. It's the same thing always.
Yes.
And now,
so that I did kind of do an exercise. I don't know how interesting it is, but especially in my second watch, I realized this movie in the first half is trying to be about Gen X, and the second half it's just a rom-com.
Yeah.
And I can talk later about how I think they cut a lot of like plot lines and background for characters and just focused on the love triangle.
I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was just like all the stuff that like Roger Ebert said that he didn't like he didn't like Vicky and he didn't like Sammy, and like I liked that part. Those were the parts that I was the most interested in. Like I love Sammy as a character. I wanted more from Sammy. I want more Vicky. She's the best.
I totally agree. Absolutely. I wrote that down multiple times. And there was at least one line where Troy himself, because his backstory is established but not very well sold, to make him a sympathetic character. But Vicky and Sammy all had more to do, and they're like, we just can't get it done, so we're cutting it down to focus on the love triangle. Yeah. And I was like, this movie goes so fast at 1:40. I'm like, make it 2:10. I'll watch this a 2+ hour version of this movie if you're putting all of that good stuff back in and making moments feel more earned.
And and I don't even necessarily like, yes, more Vicky, more Sammy, but yeah, give me more Lelena, give me more Troy, Michael. Like I find Michael could be really, really a good, like a more fleshed out character, and maybe he is the more of an evil guy if you do flesh out that character some, but you didn't do it in this movie. It didn't cause me to root against him.
Suck is stop making the yuppie the coolest guy. Stop making the nihilist like the worst person I've ever met.
Yeah. I just want to know, like she says, and maybe you have this in like other research that you did, but Childress, the writer, was talking about how Troy is her husband. That is her current husband. She wrote that character like him, and I'm just like, I feel so sorry for you.
Well, he does put on a suit at the end.
Yeah, but if she's like Lelena, fine, whatever.
Yeah, you know what? You kind of asked for it. Okay,
all right.
Here's what I did real quick. I'll read because so much again. Circling back to like Gen X's anger at materialism and pop culture. For the first half of this movie, everybody's jokes aren't jokes. They're just referencing pop culture in some way. Mm-hmm. So I tried to write down as many things as I saw and heard. And from the beginning, here's the list, not in particular order. Charlie's Angels, There Are People in Africa Without Cars, Coca-Cola, Social Security Numbers, Columbia Records, I Play One on TV, BMW, Running Shoes, Not So Fresh Feeling, Domino's, there's like a fruit flavor thing in there, I'm Not a Pepper, Planet of the Apes, MTV, Good Times, Snickers, Big Gulp, Mineral Water, Starbucks, Peter Frampton and Marky Mark, Quarter Pounder with Cheese, Camel Straits, Cool Hand Luke, NutraSweet, Gap, Bryant Gumbel, Barbie, Whole Foods, Radio Shack, Garfield, and Diet Coke are all mentioned in the first half of the movie.
Wow.
And in the second half, it's like Crips and Bloods, TV Psychics, Melrose Place, Pizza Hut, The Brady Bunch, and Cocoa Puffs. So they're coming out like rapid fire, like we're Gen X, man. Everything's just a commercial that we're being ironic about and sarcastic about. And in the second half, it's just people are talking just way more like normal people, and they're not trying to be as clever, and they're not even talking about their worldview much at all.
It almost makes me think about that scene in Wayne's World where Wayne's talking about not taking any like sponsors or whatever, and it's just like them going through commercials. He's like Pepsi, it's the voice of a generation, and he has the Advil. I don't know if you remember that part of the movie, but that's what that reminds me
might
of.
actually be a smarter attack on corporate culture, but that was Penelope Shiras who did the Decline and Fall of Western Civilization documentaries and did like a bunch of really cool hard hitting stuff about pop culture. And was given Wayne's World for some reason just because she was hip, and so she probably put more like interesting critiques of the corporate world and media world than this movie was able to do.
I love that. You've got some fans in chat here. I need Ryan to do an analysis like this on all pieces of media.
Nice, I will.
Let's talk about some of the scenes that really stuck out to us. I'll let you kind of take it over.
I will say I did get it down to a digestible list, but it's hard because I like the editing so much in this movie. But there's so many like 45, 60-second scenes that are all kind of equally good and have equally good moments. So it's hard to pick because they're not big chunk scenes. But I think you have to start with the kind of intro montage. It's fucking iconic. It sets characters up so well. It sets the humor and the worldview and the situations up so well. Probably a pretty early version of like the shaky cam kind of stuff. We're just kids documenting on a rooftop while we drink. It's pretty great.
The other thing about that, like that initial scene there where she's shooting everything, I loved it. Like I thought that was so cool, and I could see my 18-year-old or 21-year-old self being like, "Yeah, yeah," like eating it up and just truly believing that. So it did feel like these were 21, 22-year-olds. Like, here's what we're gonna do. We're not sure what we're gonna. I don't know. I really liked it. It's also
cool.
kind of
they seem real.
Yeah, it's also reminiscent of a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm sure you have because you went down like director lists and things. But Kicking and Screaming by
Screaming.
Oh God, what is that guy? I want to say it's Greta Gerwig's husband. Who directed Squid and the Whale and all that stuff.
Noah Baumbach, yeah.
Noah Baumbach, yeah.
That's a lot of movies, but I never saw Kicking and Screaming.
Yeah, Kicking and Screaming is very, it is all of those. It's just about like a group of guys that just got out of college. That is very Gen X. And it is that whole like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. That's the entire movie is like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah,
now that I've graduated college in 1995.
So a few things. I think there are a lot of movies that are like that, and I wish my memory was better to pick them out and make a list. But I also think that I'll always be attracted to that adolescent angst. So I will forgive a movie a lot if they're doing that. But I don't know if Diner counts. But I thought of Suburbia by Richard Linklater, kind of a
Linklater thing. Slacker,
yeah. There's a lot of that, and it's very early '90s, right? Clerks comes out, right? That's huge. That's a version of this. And do you remember this moment? Do you remember when like? So we're going to talk politics corner real quick. But remember when like I think like Republicans were attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for having that video where she was like dancing on a rooftop?
I do remember this.
And didn't she come out and say that she was like doing a Reality Bites bit?
Oh, I don't remember. Maybe that's kind of cool.
The reason we were doing that is we were joking around and trying to do Reality Bites. So it lives on culturally. I should have looked that up.
I do remember the video though, and it makes sense that like that's what she would be.
It was funny that her enemies were like, "Look at this video she made when she was like 23, dancing on her." Everybody was like, "She looks gorgeous and cool and hip." Like I don't know, how are you hurting her? I don't just making her look cooler.
Yeah, you're just she's referencing something that's 25 years older than what she's putting out. Yeah, no, she's cool.
But if I'm not mistaken, I think she came out and she was like, "Yeah, that was because we were watching the movie Reality Bites and thought it was cool."
Yeah, in chat here, if I ever hear a Gen X person complaining about millennials or Gen Z being technology obsessed or self-absorbed, I'm going to show them the opening of this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bring their own culture back to them, man.
These are their gods.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder and freaking Ethan Hawke. This is Zeus and Hera of the Gen X.
But I do think these kids are not likable in a heroic way. They're real, but I do think that the opening sequence is so effective that you could just be charmed by this movie and then slowly learn to forgive it, everything that happens afterwards. You can kind of ride off the charm of the first act of this movie for the rest of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although Troy is just so fucking mean.
He's horrible. He's not just. I get that he should be a little mean, but he's horrible. Everything he says is gross and dumb and rude, like for no reason.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Like, I think I went into this not having seen it in a while, but going into it expecting Ethan Hawke to be Ethan Hawke. He's the same guy from Dead Poet Society that he is in whatever thing he's doing now, singing or writing or whatever bullshit he's on. But like, I expected him to be more Before Sunrise Ethan Hawke, who is this guy, but a much nicer version. And in this, he's just sad or just angry, not sad, just angry and
he's punitive at the only people who love him and like him for who he is. Like, he punishes them constantly. But and it's also maybe a failure of the script or bad editing. Like, they should have just given him some moments of like little brief moments of actually being angry and having something to say. Like, and again, this is like my probably unfair stereotype of Gen X was like, I feel the anger and I think it makes sense, but you never end up saying anything, or I don't know. Like, if he had one scene where he was right and he was like, fuck this, we're not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, and here's all the good reasons why, and it's not because I'm superior, it's because I care, then I would have forgiven him some of the mean nihilism that is unjustified.
Yeah, this gives nihilists a bad name, I feel like.
Yeah, right? Because also I feel like I watched this movie and I'm like, fuck, is that what people see when they see me? No, what, like, is I was like, they're looking at me and they're seeing him. I was like, you're giving us a bad name.
Yeah. But I agree with you. Like, if we see him talk about his dad a couple times, and like when he's at the dinner table with Winona Ryder's character and her parents and everything, like he brings up his dad dying of cancer and all that stuff, which I've seen before in something like you get the guy that deflects with like dark humor. Great, whatever. But we also see him later on the beach as she's filming him, like giving more sincere answers about the world and everything. And if you just like have him break down a little bit, shed a tear, maybe a little more of that he gives a shit about something, I can see us liking him a little bit more.
Yeah, the beach scene is the warmest scene he gets, and maybe later on the date scene we'll get to that. But there's a couple warm moments for him, but they need to be a little bit more, especially because at some point he talks about like, I don't really give a fuck. I mean, he kind of like, I don't know. When they try to fridge his dad at the end, I was like, oh, do you care about him? I thought you didn't. Like, you never talked about seeing him. You never see that guy, or I don't know, see you break down about it really. But anyways, yeah, that whole like, there's that whole opening section. You do get the parent scene in there, but then there's more montage, like of him like with his band. Hey, that's my bike. Great band name.
It's a great band name.
I like that band name. But that's kind of one big scene. That's kind of the first like 8 minutes or something.
So I'm jumping ahead. When his band is playing at the end, he says we're going to take a break and then we'll be back with some American cheese sampler platter or something.
The next American cheese snack sensation or something. I almost added that to my list of cultural references, but I was like, I think that might be the actual name of the song.
Yeah, so I was like, is that the name of the song, or are they like Mouse Rat and changed the band name because they didn't like the band name that they, hey, that's my bike, and they just changed it mid-set.
They still have the banner from the beginning behind them that says, hey, that's my bike. They introduced themselves as, hey, that's my bike. But I didn't understand that joke. I was like, I think this is them like trying to be like first act Troy, and he's just making a wry joke about American consumerism. But that one doesn't land very well.
No, it didn't.
Because they were too scared to say craft. And just say craft.
Just say craft cheese.
Yeah.
You need a long title though. Because that's what cool bands do.
Yeah.
What else do you what's the next scene you had on there?
See, there's a couple I kind of crossed out because they're not that important. I guess My Sharona is the next important moment, and it's a short moment.
Yeah. I have that as kind of my, my music moment of the movie is My Sharona at the gas station, which that poor guy at the gas station. I just want to do my job. Don't make me turn up this radio.
Was he in the list of cameos? I didn't write him down because I don't really know who he is, but apparently he was on NYPD Blue.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice. I didn't even know who that was. So
yeah, I mean, we could talk about Good Morning Grant for a second. I think that stuff's pretty fun.
That stuff is fun. Again, that's one of those things where I was like, am I supposed to care? Like, you're giving me a villain. Great. I love this. Mm-hmm. And then he's out of the villain thing is out of the movie by like
Yeah.
30 minutes in or
Yeah,
something.
I said I like the editing for being choppy, but there's like bad stuff later on where like the Vicky arc with the AIDS ends, and then you get all of the Sammy arc real fast, and like they don't overlap at all or not. And I mean, it makes sense that her leaving Good Morning Grant later like inspires the plot of a lot of things that happen. But it feels like something she should be dealing with in a modern rom-com. She'd be dealing with that the whole movie until the point where she's like, screw this, I'm leaving in the third act or something. Because it is just there at the beginning, and then once she's gone, you don't get any more of that they set up.
I like the scene where he kicks her out of the dressing room, and the producer and him are talking, and the producer's like, she's got real talent. We would be dumb to lose her. He's like, no, I don't like her.
I don't want to see her pointy little face all the time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
fuck.
And why? I mean, I feel like here is a difference generationally about Gen X and Gen Z, and I love all generations. Let me go say it. But like the Gen Z person would have marched back in there a second she overheard that and gave him a piece of their mind and made sure she like filmed it and was like, "Hey, look at how I owned this motherfucker."
Yeah, that's true.
And Winona Ryder's character just goes and then walks off like, "I'm done."
Yeah, just shrugging at an impossible power structure. Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing I was going to say real quick is people aren't funny enough in this movie. And whenever they try to make cool kids and they're not funny and clever enough, it makes me hate them. But she's almost a little bit of Troy there where like I just groan because like she doesn't get him his coffee. And she says, didn't you get my espresso self memo? And I'm like, cool, kid. What a cool person you are. or then she's like, oh my God, this is so cheesy. I should eat it with crackers. I'm like, what are you, my dad? That's not cool at all. That's not a good joke.
So, somebody asked if the My Sharona scene in Stranger Things is a callback to this movie. I have no idea. I mean, I haven't watched Stranger Things in a long. I think I've only seen
I haven't seen that either, but I think it would be cool if it was. And that is kind of part of what Stranger Things does, right? Is kind of, even though this is more early 90s, but it gives that 80s, 90s nostalgia.
What are you, my dad? Yeah, I like all that stuff, and he is such a good bad guy.
Yeah, he's great. He should be in the movie more. You're right.
Yeah, I forget what other he was in a 80s movie as like somebody's dad that's like a real big dick. I can't remember what movie it is, but I think it's one of those like John Hughes movies.
Yeah. Makes sense. It feels like they got him on set for a few days to get all that done, but he just came in as like a consummate professional, not knowing what the movie's about. And is like, I'm just playing this role. Yeah,
he's in Say Anything, which isn't a John Hughes movie, but along those lines, and he's the girl's dad that hates the John Cusack character.
Right.
So
wait, is that the one who ends up like getting in trouble for fraud? There's that weird scene.
Yeah, I think that is that too.
There's that weird like scene between her and him at the end that's really powerful, but has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. She's just mad at her dad for going to jail for fraud.
Very Cameron Crowe to add something crazy in there like that. Have we talked?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, have we talked about the Frampton Comes Alive scene?
I don't know Peter Frampton enough to know for that to have mattered to me. What do you have to say about that?
No, I was just going to say that whole scene of like her going on the date with Michael and like
that's what I had next.
Having a good date with this guy, even if he is, supposed to be this yuppie corporate guy, and he's just maybe he doesn't understand all her cool references. Like I know why the cage bird sings.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the crux of the biggest problem in this movie. And we've already talked about Troy being horrible, but like they have real chemistry on this date and I like them and I root for them. And he's supposed to be a yuppie, but if he doesn't do anything mean, he doesn't do anything materialistic. He's not dismissing anything she says. He's very interested. It's very sweet. Their kiss is legitimate. I wonder if it's a failure of Ben Stiller as a director to make himself the villain that he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, it's not only that Troy sucks so much, is that Michael doesn't suck that bad at all. Like he makes some mistakes, but he's never mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And he's always interested in her and committed to her.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'll say is like he could be that yuppie villain that we have that's just like, oh, I'm gonna give your stuff to them and I'm going to make the changes to it and make the pizza thing and reference, and not care. But he doesn't ever do that. If anything, he wants to become more or less materialistic and more like her because he likes her that much. So
yeah, and is identifying her actual spirit as something that he can do. Like, he's like, look, this is my place in society, and I can bring this really cool, hip, important thing to this yuppie place. And wow, I could like what a great patron of the arts. Like, this guy's great. I love him, and he's trying his best.
I love what Alyssa just said. She says he takes her out on a proper date, dicks her down, supports her art, and yet I'm supposed to dislike him because he has a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember that from the time watching it 15 years ago. I was like, I just remember Ethan Hawke was supposed to be the guy I cared about, and I just wanted Ben Stiller to win the whole time. Yeah.
And after the date, the good date where they do have chemistry, and she, does like him despite him being what I think is just a dork. Like, he is a dork.
Yeah.
And you see like Troy walk past the car, and then he's just sitting in the dark until she comes in, like he's her father, turns on the light, like, where you been, young lady, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just makes fun of her. And then also like has knowledge that girl liked him or likes him more than that, grabs her face, tells her he loves you. And like, I thought, like, when he grabbed her face, I knew it was a joke because of the way he had her face. But like, if I'm in her POV and somebody like grabs me like that and says what they say to me like that, I'm in. And then he's like, oh yeah, fuck you. Like,
yeah, I wrote Stiller date into fake love declaration because it's incredibly cruel. Like,
it is the most cruel thing.
It is not him being like standoffish or like what's the word I'm looking for? Deflecting about his feelings, like getting there and then like deflecting, like whatever, It is like he goes out of his way to do a whole scene and look at her eyes, which in Winona Ryder's acting is like wet and like, really, you love me, and just says, "Psych, gotcha, bitch." Like, it is not just being a little bit of a dick. It is like malicious, and I hate it. And that comes right after we see a great date with Ben Stiller.
Mm-hmm.
It
just messes with her. And it's so weird. Like, they keep telling us, and they do keep reminding us in the script, that he is her best friend. She says it multiple times. This guy is my best friend. He's been my best friend
behind his back. She criticizes him to his face, but to her dad and to even Ben Stiller, she's like, "Oh, look, he's been through a lot. Like, he's a special guy." And
So I just think that's an interesting thing that I feel like they did that on purpose just to keep us like, hey, this is why she likes this guy. They've been through a lot.
Yeah.
He's my best friend. And that's them doing a lot of work with very little.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it might have been a cool choice because it makes you very invested in this like romantic situation, because normally I would find that boring because it tends to be so formulaic. But this one was so weird, and I didn't know what they were trying to do, that I was like, I don't know who should be with who anymore. Like, I don't know what I think about the world. Like,
I just kept getting mad because like then you get great time. Like, if Troy doesn't see her with Michael, they're okay. Like, the next thing that we see is like Troy's tour of his lost jobs or whatever.
Yes.
Which is a really which is a really scene. Yeah, it's a really cute scene, really good scene, which ends in him making a move on her and kissing her, and her kissing him back, and then being like, I can't.
Yeah. She's like, she turns into the one in her writing's acting just every now and then just like falls apart, but she goes, whoa! She's like that when he kisses her. Like, she's all of a sudden a Southern belle.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this. But yeah, and he's vulnerable there. There's a moment where he's like, "Look, you don't want this. I want this. I'm just talking about evolving." Like, he's being both like active but honest, and he's not hiding behind irony and sarcasm, and he's being vulnerable. And so it is one of the few times I think that seems pretty good. And it's I think it could have gone on longer instead of being like, and that's my 11th job, and that's my 12th job anyway.
Yeah.
But that one works for me. That's the only time I really see them having chemistry, other than like fighting chemistry.
Yeah, they're really good fighting each other.
Yeah.
But it's just a unique thing. And then once she mentioned, he's like, "Oh, is it because of Michael?" And she's like, "I don't know." Yeah, it is. Like, you see that she does actually like, yes, she's been holding out for Troy to, man up or do whatever he needs to do to become, what she wants. And then she also realizes like, no, I actually do like this other dude who was
Yeah.
really nice to me, which is all you need to do.
God forbid, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I like that scene just because
Mm.
that's the only moment we get between them where you're like, yes, they could work.
Yeah. And it's also the only moment where it's not annoying that they're doing their shit in front of other people. Like when they fight or everything comes about them, and then you just see all these cooler characters melt into the background, just watching, having to watch this shit. Feels nice to see them alone in a weird way, where I'm like, all right, it's safe for you guys to be self-absorbed here. Like, the next scene I had though was when she fights. Like, I think there's a whole bunch of little shit that happens, but when those two fight,
the only other thing I was going to say is whenever she's going to like try and get jobs, I like that little montage of her going to all these places, and then it ending with Ben Stiller's mother cameo telling her like, do you know what the definition of irony is? And she's like, I see it all the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's you fucking pseudo intellectual bullshit. Gen X, get out of my face.
That was a mild what the fuck moment I had, both that and then later on where she can't do the math. And look, anybody who struggles with math or doesn't know what the definition of irony is, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it was weird for me that this, again, you keep wanting me to think these characters are like smart, clever, thoughtful, well-read, people who have explored a lot of things. And I was like, you can't do basic addition or define irony. Like, where did you guys go to school? Was it in Houston? How did you become a valedictorian?
Yeah, valedictorian of her college class or college in Houston, which is a weird choice for locale.
I thought that was weird too. I didn't know why.
Yeah. And maybe they were trying to hit on the like Linklater, like Austin scene, maybe. And he was like, Houston's like Austin, right, guys?
Yeah, or maybe it felt too on the nose about Austin, but
that's the only thing I could think of.
It was strange.
And I guess she's broadcast journalism major, maybe. Like,
also, like in a movie, it seems like a weird hit at TV journalism, or it was like, look, honey, like you can't define irony. You belong in television.
Yeah, it's true. It's true though.
But yeah, she has that montage. Like he's disappeared and she's trying to make shit work. And so the next scene I had was when he finally shows back up, and has a fight with him. In the screen.
Yeah. That's after she goes into the diner?
Yes.
Right? Which I didn't understand the diner thing at first. Like this was like the first time she had seen him after, and like I thought it was because that was like his spot and he was embarrassed that there was a woman there. That's the reaction it felt like, oh my God, there's a girl in my all men's diner. Like that's what it's, because each guy at the bar was a man. So I didn't really understand it at first. And then I was like, oh, he's just mad.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I could imagine. Only thing I remember from that part is like me cringing so hard where he said your bravado is embarrassing.
Oh,
bad line. She doesn't even have that much bravado.
No, your bravado is embarrassing. God. Ugh.
He's reading Heidegger. I know that book. I've never read it, but he's reading a really pretentious philosophy book.
And isn't that book that he's reading like a Nazi sympathizer?
Oh, wow. His name's Heidegger, so probably.
Yeah, I think that in the little bit of research I saw on there, it was like that guy ends up being like having a lot of like, yeah, I love Hitler stuff. So interesting bit.
We're getting some deep cultural analysis in chat.
Okay, what if, hear me out, Ben Stiller with this movie is advocating for big capitalism and wants us to hate these people and think they're dumb?
That's how it feels.
That is how it feels. It really does.
Can't be what they were trying to do, but that's how it feels. And even with them, with that big list of stuff I said, they're like, yeah, you love Schoolhouse Rock and you love Domino's Pizza and you drink a ton of Diet Cokes and smoke cigarettes. Like you love capitalism. You can't get enough of it, but you're too cool for it at the same time.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, this could be true too. Cause like Ben Stiller is not Gen X technically. And Janine Garofalo is also not Gen X. She hates this movie is what I've
seen. I read a few things. She seems to be like, ugh, talking about that. And one of their quotes was like, look, I don't know why young people like it so much because I was 29 playing a 21-year-old. So
yeah,
it appeal to me.
Even though that's like right on the verge. Give me a break.
Well, that's more our generation than 21 and 31 are the same exact thing.
Yeah, they are not. You're right. What was your next one?
The big screaming fight was an important scene at least. I'm trying to remember what she actually says in it though. She had a good line in there somewhere.
And this is the one when Troy brings his date, right?
Yes. And then she just explodes. And he repeats the line back, like, why are you acting like a jealous girlfriend now?
And I felt so bad for that girl.
Yeah, she was just in the background, just like squirming. Not her fault at all. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like an important scene. She kind of like, she hits him pretty. Oh, yeah, that was the line. She kind of hits him. She's mean back. And it's kind of hard to catch what she's even talking about, because they must have cut more scenes out about Troy's dad. Because at the end of her big long speech, she says, "You're going to end up just like him." And I'd be like, "Who's him? Who are you talking about?"
Yeah, like you're going to end up with cancer in a hospital in Chicago. Like
Yeah,
that's
because they haven't
mean.
established that he thinks his dad's a loser. He might think that because he like worked a bag. He's talking like, "You want me to be on a factory line and all this stuff for 30 years and get a watch and tumors in my balls?" So like maybe he thinks his dad's a loser, and for being divorced too, I guess. But like he never really says that, and so I didn't know what that line meant. But once I put it together, that's like, you're gonna be a loser just like your dumb dad. Like that was like, oh, that's fucking devastating for this character. I just had to do most of the work to figure out that it is.
Yeah. And she has that whole part about like, you want to be in a band, go ahead, play every night, play 3 times a night. Don't just dick around the same coffee house for 5 years. Don't dick around with her or with me. I try at something in your life is what she
This
says.
movie hates its own generation. This is an attack on Gen X, because that's like that little line you just quoted is just very much like what you would say. Because I had the alternate analysis that somehow underneath this like upbeat movie is Childress saying and Stiller saying like Gen X isn't going to save itself. Like it's going to do like, instead of saying they're going to say sell out, they're going to find each other as slackers and just stay slackers. Because that's kind of what happens at the end of the movie. It's like, look, hey, you want to love me anyway? I'm a dick, and she's like, all right.
I just saw. Did you have Cliff's notes in your list of?
Oh, I thought about writing it down. I didn't, but that is another cultural touch point. Yeah, for the middle class educated.
He's the reason Cliff's notes were invented.
Oh yeah, and so crass about intelligence too. Like. Oh, you have to have a certain amount of IQ points to talk to me. Like it's one thing to like intelligence, but it like to have such a narrow view, and maybe that was just how people talked back then of what intelligence was and how it can be good or bad or neutral. Like it's kind of
yeah, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that they say the R word like 4 times in this movie.
3. I had a tally. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I watched Little Giants last month, and they definitely say it in that movie too.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want an R word count for the 90s. What else?
I think it's an important scene when Michael and Troy confront each other.
Yes, that's the next one I had. Because that is the first time in the movie that we get Michael saying something that made me go, ooh, not the best.
Okay, so I'm interested in that. What did he say?
He said, what did he say? He said something like around the lines of like, or she deserves better than you. Like,
yeah. Okay. So this is my take on that scene, because I had thoughts. Because clearly overall, most of it is him confronting Troy about like, because he sits down, he's like, hey man, I like your shit in the documentary. You seem like a cool guy, right? And then Troy won't let him have an inch, right? Won't be nice to him at all. And so he confronts him. And I thought most of it, of that scene, is not about like being on Lainey's side or trying to speak for her. It's mostly between the two of them. Like, what's your deal, bro? Like, why do you hate me? Like, do we need to talk about this? And while it would have been cooler for him to be a bigger man and be like, that guy's got hangups. I'm not gonna let it bother me. I'm just gonna go on a date. I think it's legitimate for him to confront him that way. And then at the end is when she finally gets pushed to the side by 2 men, and like, where they're about to leave and he's like, cool, whatever, let's just go on a date. And then Troy says like, you don't know what she needs or something. And Ben Stiller turns around and talks.
That's the line. Yes.
But this is the thing. I agree. That's bad. It's bad that he talks for her and about what she needs. Not cool. But he delivers that line like a fucking baller. Like he's directing himself, right? So he's so serious. He's got Ben Stiller eyes on and the camera zooms in and it's I think I know what she needs. In a way you never will. And he fucking owns that line. And Ethan Hawke is like, I don't know what to say for the first time in the movie. What's your glitch is also in there.
What's your glitch is great.
I'm bringing that back after this.
No, that's exactly what Alyssa said. She was like, "Why don't we say that?"
Yeah,
Like,
it's so good.
what's your glitch? No,
So
that
was
is the
a
sign. I
fight
think
scene,
I know
but
what
yeah,
she means.
I do think, to sum up, I do think it's at cross purposes because that is that one moment I think works really well in character and was delivered really well. But it is the one moment in that fight that they're actively like two men who she's in the side the whole time, but
Mhm.
they're talking about their own relationship for the most of the time, and then he's talking for her. And it's rough.
And then, that whole intelligence bit there, like, what do I have to do to be in your cool club or whatever? He's like, oh, you don't have to do anything. It's like, there's an intelligence level there.
Yeah,
And then I like that Ben Stiller doesn't know that IQ stands for quotient.
yeah,
Which,
yeah.
oh, I'm dumb. I don't know what IQ stands for.
Yeah. I guess I don't have enough intelligence quotations for you or something like that. Quantities and-
I still like him better. He's still a better person.
yeah,
He really is. The next thing I had was the documentary screening.
Me too. Yeah.
And them finally showing that off. I mean, it's again, you're right. Like these are short scenes. Nothing is longer than like 5 minutes, honestly.
And if it was, everything that's like shaky about this movie would all fall apart.
Yeah.
You just didn't keep it rolling. Like you'd start to like see all the cracks and everything. Because none of these characters can really handle 90 straight seconds of or 2 straight minutes of being themselves. You know, they have to jump to something else.
But yeah, we get the screening of this at the very MTV-esque place. It shows like it's real world, like a real world thing, but obviously adding in the dumb things, the pizza, the psycho.
Earlier in the movie, In Your Face was described as MTV, but edgy.
Edgy, yeah.
Yeah, which just doesn't seem edgier than MTV in '94, but maybe, yeah.
No.
It seems exactly the same.
So we get that, and then she storms out. And this comes though after she is down on her luck. She's not making any money. And he calls her at whatever diner and is like, "Hey, I went behind your back. I'm very sorry. I showed them this thing. They loved it, and I knew they would love it, and all this stuff." And like,
I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to start selling fruit in the street. That little scene on the phone, more chemistry. Like
he
they're
says,
really-
"I love you,"
and then he nervously is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, you amaze me." And she's like, "You amaze me." And I was like, "God, let's get on these guys' side. Let's get them together." Like,
fuck Troy. I hate him.
yeah,
I hate him so much.
Could you imagine spending time with that guy? Fuck.
It'd be tiresome.
Yeah.
Just that guy. That's the thing though. Look at us. We keep going back to Troy. We're just like Winona Ryder. We just keep coming back to him.
Yeah. Well, that real quick, I'll jump to one of the like lesser quotes I wrote down was Vicky saying he's weird, he's strange, he's sloppy, he's a total nightmare for women. I can't believe I haven't slept with him yet.
I love that line.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, all right.
Also, Alyssa probably would want me to talk about her storming out of that screening or whatever, and her boobs just being the bounciest boobs ever.
Oh, I need a third screening.
She was like, she is not wearing a bra, and those things are just bouncing and make me think that they're everywhere. And that dress also reminds me of the other fucking awful thing that Troy says before they go out. And another thing where Michael is just better. He's just amazed by her. He thinks she is gorgeous and looks like the best thing ever. Has no words.
You look amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And he says, you look like a doily.
Mm.
And I think we're supposed to assume that Michael is stupid because he doesn't come up with she looks like a something.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to roast his girlfriend.
Yeah. He doesn't know how to roast his girlfriend saying she looks like a doily.
Fuck, doesn't have IQ to roast his girlfriend.
God. She looked great. Whatever.
She looked great, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, the documentary screening, she's mad at him now. He's got to try and win her back. And then that leads to her hooking up with Troy.
Yeah, the hookup scene is pretty. The hookup scene could have been better, but again, we just like Troy, so it's kind of unearned. There's a little like moment in there that's Actually, there's some good moments. She has it kind of gets to the theme of the picture. She's like, well, why can't it just end up like the Brady Bunch? And it comes back to like early 90s, like, well, because Mr. Brady died of AIDS. Like, we're grown up now, and like we have to like reject these things we've been given. And that's the reality that bites, is that it's not like Brady Bunch. And a pretty lame line, but one that I think is it's just succinct, where he says, look, the only thing you have to be at 23 is yourself. Is a pretty good line for a coming of age, like adolescence, post-college thing. But I just don't care about them being together. So the rest of that scene doesn't mean much to me.
Well, and she also this is her opportunity during this kind of time we get to see the Sammy scenes, like her filming Sammy and him coming out to his parents, and her making up with Janeane Garofalo's character, Vicky, after she was a complete dick to her.
Yep.
Who offered her a job where she could make money. She's like $5 an hour. And I was like, yeah, that was like the minimum wage. Like that's almost minimum wage when I got a job.
Yeah. And then later when she's yelling at Troy and it's like, well, fine, just go out there and work then. Like work a job and do 3 gigs a night, Like I was like, yeah, but you won't work for $5 an hour at the Gap. Yeah. Like you're too good for that.
And you probably get sweet discounts on Gap. You see all that denim that they were flashing? Man.
A lot of denim.
So much denim.
Again, I want there to be. I wish they had like filmed a second movie where it's about it's Vicky, right? Vicky and Sammy, where they're the main characters, an actual smart person and an actual funny person, and like they go through their journeys together as like best friends, trying to navigate their actual problems, and then the comedy is these two like self-absorbed assholes in the background are constantly like they're just in the background fighting all the time. Like, we got to deal with these fucking lame, pretty normies, like we're over here dealing with real life. It'd be a better movie.
Yeah. That's the movie we need. We need the Sammy, Vicky movie.
Totally. But yeah, they fuck.
They do fuck, and I don't care.
And then it's just the bar scene,
And then, but when they do fuck, he leaves immediately. Like he's getting the hell out of there
in the morning,
running away.
Yeah,
just what he does, runs away.
When we get to the bar scene too, I'll defend him a little bit. That is what he's doing. He's not. I mean, it's not good, but it's also like later on, like in the bar, she's yelling at him. It was like, "You bailed on me this morning." And he was like, "I panicked. It happens." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." Like, instead of like immediately being like, "I'm going back to my other boyfriend," because I don't know what she was expecting. He could have done way better about leaving and could have reassured her in some way. But I just don't feel like he didn't sneak out. He didn't like refuse to see her again. He didn't say this was a mistake or come on, let's be honest. Like we just need to get out of our system. I need somebody smarter. I don't know. So he was definitely a dick when he left in the morning, but for her to throw everything she had experienced the night before back under the bus to go where she was 18 hours earlier because he bailed in the morning felt unjustified.
And then the second, though, at the bar, when Michael shows up with the tickets, then Troy's like, I'm in red. Like he sees red and he's like, I'm going over there now. And I was just like, just because there's a chance that he can't have her in his life, he needs her in his life.
And he's not pursuing her before Michael shows up.
No.
It's definitely an ownership thing.
Yep.
It's definitely she's mine, and I can be bored when I think she's available. I can be bored by that and not be interested in it. But the second she's not available, all of a sudden I have to assert my property, my ownership over this person, and it's extremely toxic and bad because I felt the same thing. Like, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm gonna run away. Wait, the other guy's back around. Fuck you. Fuck you. That's not, bad.
And this is another when Michael does come back to her, one with tickets, plane tickets, so they can go fix the documentaries how she wants it done.
Yeah.
And says that he has one line in there. I cannot remember what he says to her. But it is along the, and I didn't love it for him, but it wasn't like bad enough for me to hate him. Which I think maybe that was part of the intention, the whole like ownership thing. Like it felt like there was another line in there that was a little bit of like, I know what's best for you, but it wasn't even that, like I said, it's not even that bad. It doesn't even stand out to me. I just remember the feeling whenever he's talking to her of like, I could fix this. I can, we just need to do this and this and that. Like some little thing there that bugged me, but then he gets great lines after she runs out, and then he runs out, and then as soon as he runs out, Troy fucking runs out. He gets a great line with Troy.
The gesture stuff?
Yeah, the jester stuff.
I loved it. He's like, yeah, you know what happens to people like you? You're just a skull. And they're like, I knew him. He was funny. Bleh. I was like, that's great. That is also like a not overly clever, smart guy burn that is spot on to Troy's character. And he's like, yeah, that's what happens to people like you. You just get remembered for being funny and you get tossed to the side.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
That's the line. Sorry. He said he deserves another shot. That was the one line where I was like, I don't love that, but it's not the worst thing that anybody's ever said.
Yeah, deserves is the wrong word.
Right.
Like,
again, I don't hate him.
I don't know how you would say it better. Yeah, please tell me I can't get another shot. I want another shot. Is maybe what you say. I want another shot.
And then throws those tickets on the ground. Wonder how much those cost. That's all I could think of.
Like at least 8 to 9 hours at the Gap.
But he's so corporate. He's got plenty of money.
Italian suits. He doesn't want a great house, just a nice house.
Just a nice house. That's all I want. Is there anything else?
No, because it's at the end, and I don't even care. The end sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, they do get back together or whatever, and then they end up living together in a new house, which I'm like, great. Enjoy paying rent for that guy.
He went to Courtin, and then they're like, but my dad's gas card.
He doesn't even sing Froggy Win a Courtin in a good way. He sings it in an Ethan Hawke way, and it's not as good.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character? Or somebody that stole the scene, maybe?
Stole the scene. Yeah, I mean, I'll say Janine Garofalo because she has more chances and does it. Steve Zahn, every time he's on screen, is just, I can't not watch him. I cannot love him. Steve Zahn's amazing.
Yeah.
But Janine Garofalo gets a lot more to do. So probably her.
Yeah, I picked Vicky too. Sammy, like I love Steve Zahn and everything he's in. He's amazing. He's usually comic relief, like in the mid 90s to late 90s, and we get a lot of him being like comic relief and stuff. But I mean, he was funny in this movie, but not like laugh out loud. He's not there for comic relief. He just says like, I don't know. Like when he's doing the whole scene of him coming out with Janine Garofalo.
Yeah,
that's
funny,
very funny. But yeah,
well,
I think
it's crazy because he was so much younger, but he's already doing like really like minimal comedy stuff. Like in the opening montage, he's like, I might want to get a career or something. And he just does little stuff with his eyes and his mouth and the way he talks and he eats the pizza. And I'm like, this guy just knows how to be funny.
Yeah. I love that.
The littlest line in the world. He made it hilarious.
I love that Janine Garofalo was trying to do an accent though, as his mother.
Very like Wisconsin.
Yeah, very Wisconsin. Like, any quotes that we might have missed? We did go over a lot of them.
Yeah, the little ones I can skip. I wonder if this is like the first time because I've seen it happen so many times in movies where Evian is naive spelled backwards comes up. I wonder if this is the first time that's like said in a movie or TV show.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that before, but I think you're right. Like it's especially because this is when like Evian is like huge.
Right. Hey, I'm a non-practicing virgin. It's kind of funny. All right. The best quote of the movie is Troy. And it's very simple, but it's just very well delivered. It's very rom-com. But on their date, when he says, you see, Lainey, this is all we need. A couple smokes, a cup of coffee, and a little bit of conversation. You and me and $5. I think is a pretty good line.
That is a good line. I also like this line, even though it's a dick line from Troy. I am not under any orders to make the world a better place. That is the most Gen X line I think I've ever heard.
Yes, exactly. That is the whole generation.
Yes. And I'm kind of dig it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not in charge of this.
Especially because in that moment, he's being like needled by her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why aren't you going to do that? Why aren't you? He's like, look, I'm not under any orders to do that. Yeah.
Did this, speaking of what's happening in chat, Synopsis Cigarettes Will Find You Love. Did this movie make you want to smoke anymore?
Yes.
Yeah. It did.
I quit smoking. I mean, I vape like crazy now, but I quit smoking like 4 months ago or something. And it's not been hard to quit or stay quitting. But this one is the first time in a while that I was like, man, look at all these cigarettes. They're smoking inside.
So many cigarettes. And I was just like, that sounds so good. Like they make it look so fun. I was into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when Troy says, hello, you've reached the winter of discontent.
Yeah, I did like that line. Yeah. It's pretentious, but it was good. But it was better than being like, obey your thirst. It's a Sprite. Like, I don't know. That was like the rest of his jokes are like that. So
why don't you get a job at the Burgerama? They'll hire you. My Lord, I saw on the TV they had this little R-word boy working the register.
Well, then I like the one I wrote down. It's just like, Mom, I'm not R-word. I was the valedictorian of my college class, and then her like stepdad has to be like, well, you don't have to put that on your resume.
He was so good.
Yeah, that's like his exact 2 lines, and the first one is early in the movie where he goes, "Huh?" because he realizes somebody's talking shit about him.
Do you ever wish you were a lesbian though? Don't you think it'd be so much easier?
Yes, well, then her response to that's what I wrote down because it's so weird. This is like a what the fuck moment I had of why she couldn't be a lesbian. I couldn't go through it. I just start laughing or something. What does that mean? I'm into the idea of being a lesbian, but I wouldn't be able to help myself.
Just
I'd just start laughing. I have no idea
Me
what
too.
that means.
I couldn't be gay. I just start laughing.
Yeah, well, it sounds like fun.
Yeah. Let's see. Everything else we've already talked about. You talked about
Steve Zahn's the one thing he gets to do that's serious, where he's standing outside his house. I didn't have it exactly. Again, a very simple line, but effective, especially for the message in the audience. I can't really start my life until I can be honest about who I am. It's pretty good. And then it's kind of metaphorical, where he's like, I want to be happy. I want to be miserable. I want to be let back into the house. Like he's been kicked out.
Yeah, I like that.
Metaphorically, like about homosexuals and AIDS at that time, and him confronting his parents is like, look, I don't need it to be perfect. I don't need it to always be fun, but like just let me back in the house, both of society and in our actual homes. Pretty well done.
Also, how crazy. I mean, just I guess they're talking about, AIDS and the scare of AIDS. We've already, we talked about Philadelphia. There was even a line in It Could Happen to You where somebody was like, he's got it, doesn't he? And so AIDS is still very prevalent at this time and still very much a scary thing, where Steve Zahn says, I've never even had sex because I'm scared of the big A.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. That, I don't know. It was just wild to me. And we're getting a lot of cop movies. We're getting a lot of AIDS movies.
Oh yeah. That is early
93, 94. So
chat says Philadelphia meets Degrassi.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I'd watch that television show.
Yeah, we talked about the rest of them. Yeah. Those are my quotes.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest laugh, cry, scare, or thrill. If any of those are covered, or we covered some of them. Like, I think I laughed the most at the I'm a non-practicing virgin, because it's a line that is it's a funny line, and I think she just blurted it out, and Ben Stiller just has to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
And just be uneasy with it. But yeah, it's pretty funny to me.
Yeah. There's a bunch of little lines. Janine Garofalo at the Gap talking to that woman, like, yeah, sure, roll up the sleeves, isn't it liberating?
Roll up the sleeves.
She has a really quick throwaway joke later where she goes, guys, I'm late for a gene folding seminar.
God, she's incredible. I love Janine Garofalo so much.
They're pretty good. Yeah, she's so good. Pretty good David Spade moment where the last thing in his scene is like, look, there's a reason I've been here 6 months.
Yeah, that's a good line. That's a really good line.
And then, throwaway line of when she gets promoted at the Gap. Yeah, the old manager tried to kill herself by eating a whole pot of poinsettias.
I'm glad you had these.
Yeah, they're good. And then the last one that I really liked a lot was because it felt very sincere, where they're fighting after the documentary like recut or whatever. They're fighting outside, and he was like, he uses the whole meatloaf metaphor, and she's like, it was never meatloaf. And he's like, yeah, look, that's not a great metaphor. I didn't. He immediately he's like, yeah, I know
meatloaf. That's good. I love meatloaf.
Yeah.
I want to be with Michael so bad.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I had was the showdown between Michael and Troy as being like a very tense moment when they're in the apartment, but we already talked about that a little bit. So
yeah, what, for a laugh or
no, just for like a tense thrill scare, I guess, kind of thing. Because I didn't really have anything else.
We talked about all of them. I mean, obviously there's no scare. I will add that I wrote the violent femmes added up scene, like actually feels pretty aggressive. Like he actually seems scary for a minute. Because he's so like dismissive and rude, and then all of a sudden he's on stage like, Lainey, this is for you, and he's like singing with eye contact about fucking her, and I'm like, oh, this is like very menacing.
I don't want him singing Violent Femmes though.
I know, it's too cool a band for him.
Yeah, he ruined it. He definitely ruined it for me. That's all I have to say. Anything else under that categories?
I mean, I have a what the fuck moment.
Yes. Okay, good. Move on to what the fuck.
Well, what the fuck moment is them casually. It's actually a good music moment too. We'll get to, but they're listening to what are they listening to? Tempted, and he's listening to, and then it cuts to Ben Stiller. They're riding in the car and they're singing "Tempted by the Fruit of Another." Ben Stiller's listening to some like old school hip hop, and then they just look at him and laugh and throw a cigarette into his car, which is crazy. Yeah. It starts a fire. The fire causes him to hit their car. And then he's just on the phone dealing with it, and they're looking at him and laughing. I was like, "You just caused an accident in where you got hit, and you think it's hilarious."
Yep. That is very like, not to compare. I mean, to compare the generations, like that seems like a very. I mean, I think all generations have this, but Gen Z is very much in that mindset too of like, I don't give a fuck about y'all at all.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're all laughable little monkeys. You care so much about these things, which is rude of them because clearly that guy is not any of those things, but maybe that's why they're doing it. It also may be a little bit like, I just don't think we can get away with making reality so cartoony without going full cartoon comedy.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, you could just be like, nah, a car accident happened. We don't have to deal with consequences or be scared. But now we'd be like, Jesus, that's way too.
And then then he goes in there and just, I guess she follows him to his work in that office and
information or something. But Vicky's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like just breaks his Dr. Zaius statue or whatever.
And then he's just like, hey, it's okay, man. I get it. Life's hard. I'm just a little corporate suit and I'm trying to do my best out here.
One thing about the Dr. Zaius thing is, maybe this is just me. I don't watch much Simpsons, but the little bit of Simpsons I do have watched, there's a scene where they do that Amadeus song.
Yes,
but it's the Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to like Planet of the Apes. I think.
Yeah.
Later, I was like, oh, this is from the Simpsons thing.
Which one's your best music moment?
My best, huh? One of the few things I remembered was the added up scene, and I remember it being Violent Femmes.
Yeah.
I remember the emotional impact of that at that moment. Yeah, so that would probably be my best.
Yeah, I wrote down 3, and it was My Sharona's moment.
Yep.
Baby, I Love Your Way. Yeah, I love that. And then I had to put in, even though it's not in the movie until the credits, the Lisa Loeb Stay song.
Yes,
because that was like the first time it had come out, kind of thing. So
I jotted down Stay. I do think like Conjunction Junction, like they use music a lot, but doing the Schoolhouse Rock thing as a theme, because later on she's like braiding your hair, singing "I'm Just a Bill."
I'm just a bill. Yeah,
but that's all I had too, except that I think it's called "When You Come Back to Me." I don't know that song, but that's the opening montage song, and it fucking slaps. And I was like, I'm gonna listen to the song later.
The Story of Our Lives was in this too. Was that it? Story of Our Lives. That song. I forget what that's. Who sings that? But that's a pretty big.
Maybe I Love Your Way. Oh, that's what you said, actually, right?
Yeah.
That U2 song's kind of okay. I never listened to U2 much because I don't think I'd like it. But
Social Distortion. That's who sings Story of My Life. Yeah, that song.
It's a pretty good soundtrack.
Yeah, it is. Behind me, I'm playing Empire Records on the VCR, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of the same thing, same vibe here. With the soundtracks. Okay. I don't have fuck, marry, kill or whatever. I'm just making you choose. If you had to choose, which I already know the answer, but if it's Troy or Michael, who you choosing?
I'm choosing Michael, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got that money. He got that job.
You know what? It's easier to teach someone to be interesting than it is to teach them to be kind.
Yeah. Really. Michael was just kind, and that goes a long way.
Here's the thing. Michael will follow you to every art gallery and every like art house theater she wants to go to. They'll be like, yeah, sure, babe. Let's go check it out. And then
he's very Michael Scott coded. Like, I will do anything if for my friends or anything. Like, I'll do it. I'll just, I love you that much. I will do whatever you want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't want that. She wants to be shit on. So I'm going to give you the next one, which is Vicky or Lelena.
Vicky.
Yeah. It's an easy one because Lelena is just like a little Troy.
Yes, kind of. I will say that I did think about it. I was like, Lelena is the only person who gets 3-dimensional character development.
Yeah.
Because she's a lot of different things and they're all believable within one person. She gets to be intelligent. She gets to be creative. She gets to be immature. She gets to be funny. She gets to be cool, but she also gets to be mean. She gets to be confused and confident and brave. She gets to be all these things, and I still believe it's all one person. So that makes her the only 3-dimensional character that I think is done fairly well. But Vicky's smarter, gets it, is more mature, is funnier.
She's got a way higher body count.
That's true. She fucks. She pays her own bills. Yeah,
That's
please.
important, very important. Lelena, so on that, like I was thinking about that. The time that Lelena is mad at Vicky,
Mhm.
or says that dickish line to Vicky, it really bugged me because she was like, I'm not gonna work at the Gap.
Yeah.
But like in that, yes, she's a big dick to somebody that's giving her a handout or anything like that.
Yes.
But I have been or thought that exact same thing before.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna do that. That's beneath
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
So yes, it was absolutely relatable.
Yeah, totally. One scene real quick that we skipped over is I do think the diner scene might have been under like a cry moment too, like the Steve Zahn thing, but the diner scene where Vicky gets a little moment, and that's when they come back together and really like bury the hatchet of the problems they have with each other. But she's talking about like, I'm just gonna be that AIDS character, like I'm gonna have to convince people to touch me, like to be around me, that it's okay. And I feel all alone. And again, Winona is a dick to her. Laney's a dick to her. But in that moment, she sees her friend for what she's going through, and she drops all of that. She's like, "Oh no, baby, you'll never be alone. I'm here. We'll do this together, like we deal with everything together." And so again, a good 3-dimensional moment for Laney where she's not totally self-absorbed, just needs to be shaken out of it every now and then.
Yeah, she would have made $200 a week if she would have worked at the Gap, which is not $400 a week, but
well, no, it was also mentioned that it was a part-time job, so I'm supposed to feel bad for these people, but I'm also like, wait, you're sharing there's only 2 people paying rent in this pretty nice apartment / house, a duplex or something.
Maybe that's why they put it in Houston. They were like,
yeah,
we don't have to make something unbelievable like New York or something.
Like the idea that a $5 an hour part-time job at the Gap can solve all of our financial problems, like, is crazy. Yeah.
But instead, she just racks up a gas scheme because her dad has a gas card that she
and 400 on TV Psychics. Yeah.
Oh God! So I hated it so much.
Yeah.
I hated when she called that psychic.
I did like their fight. I mean, Laney was a horrible person in that fight, but it felt very grounded. Like it was like a roommate friend being like, "Look, man, how long are you going to be like this? Like we got real problems." And then her like lashing out defensively, like, "Oh, you love this. You love lording over me." She's like, "No, I don't. Like, I just don't know what to do with you. I'm worried." And I forgot to mention it because one of the 3 things I remember 15 years later, clearly about this movie is Janine Garofalo saying, "Man, you are in the bell jar."
Oh yeah, I love that. That's a good line. You are in the bell jar. That's so good. Who do you think gave the best performance?
Yeah, I mean, I Garofalo and Zahn like pound for pound, but I'll give Winona credit. When Winona Ryder has to act out in a big emotion, she starts acting really bad. But she does so good with little things and normal things.
I think she is better with anger though than she is with like sadness or even joy. I think
part of it, she has kind of a weak voice. I notice this with actors sometimes. If you can't like channel a lot of like boom to your voice, it's harder to do bigger emotions. So you hear her voice kind of struggle when she has to be louder.
Yeah. I give Ben Stiller some props here.
He has some moments for sure.
Because he's not obviously like, unless you're watching like the Ben Stiller show at this time or anything, you don't know anything about Ben Stiller and you don't know that he's going to be heavyweights. You don't know he's going to be Zoolander at this point or all these things. So.
And then we remember him for his big, broad comedy. But the fact that, at what, 30 years old or something, or 31 or something, he was directing and starring in his own film and did this good a job at both.
Yeah. And was able to be funny while being serious, like deliver funny lines and not have them have to be like some crazy Ben Stiller freak out that we're kind of used to from Meet the Parents or any of those other movies. Like when he's talking about the meatloaf thing, like that's really funny delivery that he's giving, and it's sustained a little bit.
I think it's taken me years to slowly retroactively give Ben Stiller all the credit he's due, because he seems like from a young age was ambitious, was very brave, and like made cool decisions.
I've always kind of liked Ben Stiller from like it kind of in the more grounded roles that he has had, whether it's Walter Mitty, another movie that he directed that I really love, and I think that's a beautiful movie. But like I mentioned the other day, after I watched this movie with when I was talking to Alyssa, that the movie Keeping the Faith. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
It is a love triangle movie, and more 90s names can't be spoken. It's Ben Stiller, Edward Norton, and Jenna Elfman. And he is a rabbi, and Edward Norton's character is a priest, and they're best friends.
I remember this movie now. I haven't seen it, but now I remember it. Yeah.
It's really cute. It's a dumb rom-com. It's really cute, though, and watched it again when I was way too young, like 12, and liked it way more than I should have. Because I'm sure it's not a good movie, but I think he's really contained in that movie and he's also super buff in that movie for some reason too.
Yeah, he's always been like that too.
He's
I mean, we'll just say that later.
If you had to recast this movie, could you do it? Or
in '93, the only thing I thought about was Parker Posey maybe being a bit better actor and believable person, and then Winona Ryder. The Ryder did a good job, but Parker Posey might have been pretty good.
And it seems like Winona Ryder and Janine Garofalo are all kind of coded the same. Like they're the same, especially like Heather. I think of like Heather's Winona Ryder is very Janine Garofalo to me, like deadpan and like dark and comedic in that way.
Gets to be like a goth weirdo while still staying the it girl at the same time. She kind of goes through that with Beetlejuice, my favorite Winona Ryder movie. But
I think you probably could have recast the Ben Stiller role. I think only Ethan Hawke can play that Ethan Hawke character.
It's hard to do better than any of them, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
Ben Stiller, at least for age reasons, you could have found someone else.
Yeah, I did cast for like 2024 and maybe a Gen Z kind of version of this. I also thought it'd be interesting if you gender flipped the Troy character with his daughter, Maya.
Oh, interesting.
Who does the exact same shit as he does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like the same person. I think she is more her dad than her mom, which is Uma Thurman.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know they were together for a long time. I've never seen her. That's interesting. Yeah. Honestly, we won't get deep into it, but I was thinking at some point, like, I think it's a female writer for the script mostly, and I think that like the two women in it are pretty well treated overall in terms of. But this movie is not a feminist movie. This movie is not about patriarchy. It's not about feminism at all. It's just kind of treated like a blanket thing that they're all kids on the same level and the same playing field or whatever. But gender flipping some of these behaviors and personalities would be very interesting.
Yeah, Christian Slater probably. Okay, that's not a bad one for Troy.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
That's very Heathers and very, pump up the volume.
Mm-hmm.
Samantha Mathis would have been a hot cast at that time too. Like, all these same. It's like the Brat
Lee, maybe, but I don't want to see her.
Oh yeah, no, you're right though. Like, it's not the Brat Pack. It's like the Brat Pack, like right after the Brat Pack. It's the grunge kids.
In 2024, I had the love triangle that I just want to see in real life of Chalamet as Ethan Hawke, Zendaya as Winona, and then her boyfriend Tom Holland as Ben Stiller.
I love that. I fucking love that. Yeah. That's incredible. I like that a lot.
That would make the Reality Bites reboot like make a shit ton of money if you did that and watch all those together and have like fans like really like battle it out about who they wanted to like be with each other.
Oh my God, I love that so much. That's way better. I had Jenna Ortega in the Winona Ryder role.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Which she's gonna play she's gonna play Winona Ryder's daughter in the new Beetlejuice movie that's coming out. So
I was just thinking the other day why they haven't tried that yet, but I guess
I got a couple other Jacob Elordi as Troy. He's really hot right now. Skylar Gisondo as Michael. And if anybody doesn't know who Skylar Gisondo is, he's in the movie Licorice Pizza. He's also in Booksmart, which is one of my favorite movies of the last like 10 years. And he is like the nerdy guy that thinks he's cool in that movie. And it just comes off very Michael from this movie. So, and then, the only other thing I had was Maya Hawke as Troy would be a good, like, maybe she's the main character's bisexual and has to deal with that. I think.
Oh yeah. Cool. That'd make it more interesting too.
All right. Any fun facts?
No, I think I mentioned earlier. The only thing I saw, I just read Wikipedia, was that there was material out there for more of Troy's backstory and Vicky and Sammy, and even if it was a longer movie, especially with how like easy this movie goes down, I would have liked that to be there.
Let's see here. The only other thing so the screenwriter, we were talking about her, she was 19 when she wrote this and finished that
Oh,
script.
that's cool.
Yeah, she was a freshman at USC though. So cool. Janine Garofalo was fired from this too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because even though they worked together, director Ben Stiller did not like her attitude during the rehearsal, and she was rehired after Winona Ryder stepped in. Garofalo later stated that she had really poor work ethic and hated to rehearse. So that's why
About herself.
she didn't want to do her job. So
yeah, because I think also the Ben Stiller show was a little like, hey, look, we're grungy cool kids hanging out in the hallway. Like we just make goofs up as we go along. But yeah, and I guess Andy Dick didn't do anything too bad on the one day he was on set.
Yeah. Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
I think I did read that like this movie wasn't going to happen until Winona Ryder really wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I also read that like for the Michael character, somebody fell through, and Ben Stiller had been involved for a very long time before he was like, okay, how about I step in and do this role because they can't find the right person for it. So it wasn't there. I wasn't even his like first idea. Yeah, it's like the last person to cast was himself.
$400 a week, by the way, is 3 times above the poverty line in 1994.
Okay,
so
that'd be like 40K.
Yeah,
maybe 30 something.
Not doing too bad. Doing too bad, Winona.
Yeah,
that's why she's stealing.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. There's so many times in my life, I wish somebody had given me a 40K job.
This is probably where she got the. She liked to steal things. She did the shoplifting. Maybe this is where she got it from. She thought she wasn't making enough money. If you had to do a rewatchability rating of this movie, what would you do? You've already watched it twice in the last few days. So.
I'd give it 4. This goes down like candy. It's really fun. It's just nostalgic enough. It's just angsty enough, and it's just fast and breezy. So all of its errors and annoying things are just kind of like mild and inoffensive, and then all of the fun is very warm.
Yeah, I gave it a 4 too, and then on my overall star rating, I gave it a 3.
So I gave it a 3, and I probably would take it back down. I gave it a 3, then I gave it a 3.5. But I'd probably take it back down to a 3. It's not that good of a movie, but
no, it's not. But it is. It does go down so easy. You're absolutely right. And somebody said a good comfort watch. Yeah, I could see me popping this on and being like, yeah, that's fine.
Well, and then when I talked to a couple of my friends who are older, and I was like, do you guys remember this from being your age? They're like, yeah, I do remember. Oh, yeah, I remember this and this. And they were like, I should watch it again. I was like, you should totally watch it again. Like, it's not going to take a lot of time out of your day. You're not going to regret it. You're not going to be bored in the middle. It's just going to happen like that. And you're going to be glad you did it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard whenever you're so mid on a movie that you can't like say something mean about it. Like there are things I don't love about it, but even the things that I don't love about it are, kind of charming. What kind of gives it that charm. So,
well, to restate that, this movie wasn't ambitious enough to meet its goals of its themes.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was more ambitious, it probably would have been a lot harder to pull off, and then I would have liked it less for failing.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that it wasn't ambitious enough to pull off the characters and the themes is kind of a criticism, but that's the same exact thing that makes it so easy to watch.
Yeah.
It's not full of itself. Yeah.
I agree. So Like a Fine Wine and Dish, if you could pair this movie with another movie for a double feature, what would you choose?
I had a couple. You mentioned Heathers. Heathers was one I was going to put down. I think people the same age like that. Also, 2 female protagonists. So I know I've known a number of women who love both of these movies a lot. And then if you wanted a better version, well, I don't know, The Graduate. The Graduate kind of has a post-college malaise thing from a previous generation. Much more beloved than this movie. Although I like The Graduate, but I don't know that I like it as much as the people of that generation like it.
I was about to say I have calmed down on my love of The Graduate since watching it in college. I was like, oh yeah, this movie, it gets it. Plastics, that's where the future is. No, I don't love that movie as much.
Well, it kind of has similar problems to Reality Bites of pacing and there's this whole sections of the movie where wait, what are we here to do? What are we doing here? And then there's moments and scenes and little speeches that are iconic for exactly what the theme of the movie is. But the movie as a whole is a little sloppy.
And complicated complicated protagonist to where you're like, I
Mhm.
don't love this protagonist, but I don't hate them either. But they are
Yeah.
annoying me a lot. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that was
Oh.
good. Well, and then I was thinking like I didn't get the full. I was thinking of High Fidelity, but I was also thinking of like this generation, giving them like high school, college, and then 30s. So like this could be the college version of that generation, and then like High Fidelity's of the 30s, and then picking something John Hughesy maybe as
Mhm.
like the high school version. You're almost seeing the same character or concept of character growing up through those times. Would be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I've already kind of mentioned a couple of that. I wrote down like 5 or 6, but I had mentioned like Empire Records and Slacker and Before
Makes sense.
Sunrise in between here. Singles. I was talking about Cameron Crowe earlier. Singles again from this time. Kicking and Screaming is one that I would absolutely pair this with. Noah Baumbach, 96, I think is when that comes out. You get a great performance from Eric Stoltz in that movie, who's kind of like the guy that never graduated college but is still just hanging around and is pretentious and
Okay.
that kind of guy. Chasing Amy, I thought would fit really well with this
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of movie.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that Ben Affleck character in that movie is a little bit like these characters. Again, Gen X, like no college thing around it, but yeah, that
Yeah,
kind
well,
of
that's why I paused, is because I don't think of the Chasing Amy characters as being 23, but I guess they were.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're all in there. Yeah, they're somewhere in their mid-20s, like that Jason Lee. And
Yeah, right. So no, it totally makes sense.
I think you get Mallrats before that, but
Mhm.
yeah, Chasing Amy, I think 96 or 97. So I just get that same vibe. Like maybe these guys have grown up. Chasing Amy, they have a career.
Mhm.
It's a little bit of an alternative career, but
It is Chasing Amy is like the like these guys in 5 years where they have settled down, they kind of know where they're at, and then now they're like, what are we doing next? When do we stop partying? How do we navigate true feelings?
and I love that like love triangle. It's not a traditional love triangle. One,
Yeah.
the guy falls in love with a woman who's bisexual by every
Yeah.
what we would say, but also like you have that triangle between him and Jason Lee
Mhm.
of him loving
Oh yeah,
this
yeah. We
character.
got the name there. Yeah.
So I like that. Chasing it, like it probably has some revisionist like history or not revisionist thing critiques to it about how it's not that great of a movie, but I really do. I love Chasing. I think it's one of his best ones.
It's really
Kevin
great.
Smith's
Yeah. I mean, it's the movie he made that most aspires to art, and when it hits and it succeeds, Kevin Smith also gets unfairly beat up all the time. People are just
Yeah.
beating Kevin Smith because he's fat, and that's what you do to fat people. He's not fat anymore, but yeah. When Chasing Amy hits, you really see the elasticity of his brain and heart, and I've come to not always love Kevin Smith's work, but come to love him as a person because I've seen the elasticity of his brain and heart.
Yeah.
And Chasing Amy's like the biggest like exhibit A of like, no, look what he did.
Also, I did want to give a shout out before we, wrap up to this being very Gilmore Girl coded, like with her like trying to choose between these two men kind of thing, and
Yes.
you're like, who the right answer is, but like
Mhm.
also, does Rory deserve to be with Logan? Yeah, probably.
All right.
Because
Do
they're
I
the same
blame
fucking person.
the show and the movie for making Lainey and Rory incredibly gifted and promising people who throw all that away to be boy crazy? Do I blame the character or the show for those things? I feel about both this movie and Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. But I just kept thinking about it. I was like, what are you doing? You are not very good at your you are
Oh, but
such a
wait.
Rory right now.
Oh, no, slow down, though. Rory belongs with Jess, who is Ethan Hawke in that situation.
But not really, because he is not mean to Rory in the way that Logan. Like I think Logan is.
Yeah, Logan's actually cruel. Yeah, more.
Logan is like what Michael should have been in this movie.
Okay, guys, strap in. Another 90 minutes. Let's go.
Gilmore Boys.
The Gilmore Boys are back in town.
Gilmore Boys.
That's our next podcast, Gilmore Boys. Let's go.
Gilmore Boys. Here we go. But yeah, you're right. About like their class and all that, and then nobody ever talks about Dean. But
Yeah.
he
Or
built
Marty.
her a car.
He was my favorite. Marty was
Who?
around.
Marty.
Was around for a few episodes. They watched the Marx Brothers together. I thought he was a cool dude.
Yeah. I was really I liked Lorelai's love interests more.
Yeah, that's true. Chris
But
and Face.
nah, fuck Chris.
What a motorcycle.
I hate Chris. I like the teacher guy that was in like the second
Max.
season. Max, yeah,
Max
Max.
is a real one. I fuck with
Max
Max.
is cool. Okay,
we
no,
gotta
Bill.
stop.
That next week on Bill More Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Suki, yeah, justice for Suki.
Mhm.
Or all right, Ryan. Thank you so much.
I love this. This was a fun one too because I had a lot to say and feel about it, but it was also not confusing and easy to remember like some of the other ones I've chosen.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to having you on when probably next month, I think, for another one of these. So, thank you. Is there anything that you've watched recently that you could want to tell everybody that you've seen and liked?
Oh, I rewatched Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish, which is also the last film that I've seen in the theaters, and I cried again.
Okay. I think that's the one that has like people talk about like mental health and
yeah, there's a gorgeous. I mean, like the C plot is just about adoption and found family, and it'll break your heart.
Jesus.
Puss in Boots has to confront his own mortality. It's pretty amazing. Shrek 6, guys, get on it.
I want to have Shreks with you. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. I haven't been watching anything good. I watched Head the other day, which is a monkeys movie. Hey, we're the monkeys.
Okay.
It was on I think Criterion did release it at some point, and that's probably the best thing I've watched lately. And it was just weird and super 60s, and like,
yeah.
I don't recommend it by any means, but if you're bored and you're just like, I want to see a parody of the Beatles, pop it on there. But that was on Tubi, so I got to give my props for Tubi being the best streaming service. But other than that, that's all I've got for you. Next week's movie is Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, and it is currently streaming on Canopy. If you have, Canopy through your library, it's also on Roku if that's how you get things, or you can just purchase it through video on demand. But we'll be doing that stream next Sunday at 5 p.m. And don't forget, we'll be doing a special episode at the end of the month where we're talking about rich kids movies, where we're going to be talking about Richie Rich, Blank Check, Baby's Day Out, all classics and all terrible movies. Not terrible. They're bad. They're really bad. I watched 3 of them this week. They're all pretty bad. Okay. But we look forward to those. And if you haven't dropped a follow here, please do so. And you can check out all the other links from the link tree that I have posted. So other than that, I want you all to have a good week. Thank you all for joining me here on 52/1994. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you. It was great.
All right, bye.